It's time, Fort Wayne. Your sports, your station. It's the Sports Rush with Brett Rump.
Max Landis.
Covering all the topics that hit a nerve here in the Summit City.
Clark, 11 yards, touchdown.
Only on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. Now here's your host, Brett Rump.
The greatest, most interesting, most important person of all time.
You are incredible.
Older than one.
Yeah, well, you're half right.
What is this, amateur hour?
This is going to be huge.
I believe this is going to be our finest hour.
Just when I think you've said the stupidest thing ever, you keep talking.
I think that's the worst thing I've ever heard.
That boy ain't right.
The simplest way to put it, I have problems.
Welcome to the alleged show.
Do you believe in love? Do you believe in love? Do you believe it's true?
Time to put the work away. It's closing time here on a Tuesday with the Sports Rush, your daily local sports fix, 4 to 6. I am Brett Rump along with Adam Lundy. We've got you connected two ways this afternoon. Of course, we're on our Parkview Sports Medicine text line at 260-447-8500. Also on Facebook at facebook.com/1380 The Fan. We are rolling into hour number 2, still with the video stream up and running. So if you're getting home, you can jump in. We're trying to add some viewers and see if we keep this thing running past 5:15. Normally, we figure by 5:15, everybody's had a chance to log on. If they want to see any other part of the show while we talk to phone guests, no big deal. They can stream it. We might just keep this video going.
We'll see.
We'll see how it goes. We need to get some more viewers, but if we get more viewers on our stream in the next 10 minutes or so, we will keep the stream alive.
We want to see you in there. We like hanging out with our listeners.
Of course, the big news right now, the NCAA transfer portal, it's approaching 1,000 players that have entered the portal.
My goodness.
And the Mastodons now up to 5 that have officially entered the portal, with Jalen Jackson being the biggest name, Chandler Cuttrell off the bench, also Lomax, Dukes, and a guy probably a lot of Mastodons fans didn't even know it was on the team, Devion Laverne, who came in as a transfer last year and redshirted. And so he was not on the court this season, but he has announced that he is going to transfer. But, it really does give opportunity to mid-majors to kind of revamp the roster, reconstruct it, and because the balance of the Mastodons roster was getting heavy with guards and maybe not as much the 6'7", 6'8", 6'9" kids that you need. The Mastodons had the 4th smallest roster in the entire Division I basketball landscape. And so now you can go out, you can find those 6'6" to 6'8" guys, the guys that can be some bullies around the basket, that can really get in your grill and defend, the athletes. They didn't have the athletes at 6'6" to 6'8". They had a kid that was about 6'6", but real skinny, and then they had 6'8" guys that were really more perimeter players and were not the bullies down around the basket. And so, you can go out, you can find the ones that meet the profile of what you want, that can make you a bigger lineup so you can actually get some offensive rebounds. And, I look at this roster and I think, okay, you got to get the 6'6" to 6'8" guys because mid-majors need those type of guys for versatility and just for matchups. Then you've got to find those 6'1" to 6'4" guards, the bigger guards. You've got to find, ideally, 5 to 6 players that are going to be between 6'6" and 6'8", maybe another 1 or 2 that are 6'9" or over that you can truly call your big or your post. And then you get about 4 players, 6'3" to 6'5", that are guards. Hopefully they can shoot because that's the ideal size range for a shooting guard. And then 3 that you can probably call a point guard or a 2 guard that are 6 feet to 6'2". But last year, the Mastodons had 3 starters that were 6'2" and under. And it might be stretching Jalen Jackson to call him 6'2". He might be more like 6'1.5" with a little bit of extra hair on top. But, they started 5'8", 6 foot, and 6'2". So they started with 3 smalls, and it's hard to make that up.
Yeah, and we've also seen a lot of transition to having a lot of bigger guards across the Horizon League as well. Just every position is getting bigger. And
so, ideally at the mid-major level, you're probably going to have that 6 foot, 6'1", 6'2" point guard.
Sure.
But then you've got to start complementing bigger from there. You can't go smaller for a shooting guard, and that's the problem. Is the Dons had two really special 5'8" players that were great shooters, but they also had liabilities because of a lack of size. And, it's funny because Quentin Morton Robertson may have been one of the best rebounding 5'8" guys because what he did was he would sneak in because nobody would box him out. Nobody thought he was a rebounder, right? He's 5'8". Who's going to box him out?
Right.
You almost feel silly boxing out a guy that's 5'8". But they would let him slip inside, and then when a big would get the rebound, he'd have his hands ready. And that big would grab the ball, bring it down around his waist, and there's Q to knock it away, knock it free, and grab the free ball underneath. He was just had a knack for that. But it also is difficult because you got guys that are going to post up. You got guys that are going to drive to the basket, and they'll just take it right at you because they know if they can get close to the basket, they can get up and over you and lay it in. But it gets a chance for the Mastodons to kind of revamp their roster a bit, maybe get more balance with the bigs, the tall guards, wings, and forwards, and then maybe even get a little bit of height out of the guard lineup with some bigger point guards. But Mastodons are going to have probably 8 or 9 new faces minimum coming in next year.
Yeah, a lot of transition, not only with Purdue Fort Wayne, but around the Horizon League. Just to kind of update some of our listeners who may not have been following along, Robert Morris has lost Fulgaris and Amarion Dickerson.
Yeah.
Wright State has lost Brandon Noel and Jack Doumbia. Purdue Fort Wayne has lost Jalen Jackson.
Well, and Wright State also lost Hubricks.
Yeah.
They lost Keaton Norris.
So
Green Bay has lost 2 of their best freshmen.
Yeah, Youngstown State also lost Gabe Dines. So
yeah, the 7'3" kid.
Huge.
And so, yeah, good one. Huge.
Thank you. Yeah,
that was a huge announcement. Yeah, but yeah, there's a lot of change in the Horizon League on the horizon.
Oh gosh,
Yeah.
we're getting way too corny, way too fast.
Sorry. All right, it's time to play Tuesday Time Capsule Trivia. Looking for caller number 2 right now at 260-447-8500. Who wants to play and win a large pizza to Pizza Hut? All you've got to do is be caller number 2 at 260-447-8500. That's 260-447-8500. Also a reminder that we are on Facebook, so you can actually watch us compete. And I can prove to you that I do not cheat during Tuesday Time Capsule Trivia because you can watch me. And you can watch how much I struggle with this game. But we're on Facebook at facebook.com/1380thefan. Are we ready to go?
Yep, it's all on film. We're ready.
Yeah, I got a secret camera that's going to be videotaping every move I make. If I pull out a phone or a computer.
Yeah, no Googling.
Yeah, no Googling. That's the one rule we have in the game. Let's find out who our caller is today. Who's this?
Joel.
Hey, Joel, how are you?
Joel Embiid, do we have you on the line?
Joel Embiid.
For Fort Wayne.
All right.
Awesome, Joel.
All right, Joel, we're glad to have you on. And have you played before?
I played months, maybe 9 to 8 months ago. We played a couple times, and both times we did not win. We came down to a toss-up 0-0. Nobody won.
Nobody's
Man.
won between you two.
Oh, man, we cannot do that again. Adam, if you throw a double stumper at me, I'm going to be really upset.
We'll see what we can get through today.
What were you saying, Joel?
So if we could avoid that today, that would be great.
Yeah. Let's avoid it. Let's go, Adam.
All right, let's get into it.
It's time for Tuesday Time Capsule Trivia on the Sports Rush.
All right, clue number 1. We're going to start off in baseball today. Your American League Pitcher of the Month in September of this year was Tim Stoddard of the Orioles.
I went first last couple of times, Brett, so I'll oblige to you this time.
I'll go with 1983.
Oh, let me get my louder wrong answer buzzer. There we go.
Yeah, you want to make sure that I get buzzed full volume. Yeah, we don't want to deny Brett the opportunity to get a full buzz. All right, so I'm wrong. 1983 is not the correct answer. Joel, what do you have?
Tim Stoddard of the Orioles?
Yes, sir.
Let's go 1987. Ouch.
All right, clue number 2. We're staying in MLB. Umpire uniforms in both leagues were standardized in this year. The uniforms became blue blazers, light blue short sleeve shirts, gray pants, and blue hats with AL or NL, and it was in this year.
Okay, Joel, you get to go first.
1990.
Mr. Brett?
I'm going to say 1981.
All right, going on to clue number 3. The Purdue Boilermakers defeated the Indiana Hoosiers 76-69 in the regional semifinals of the Mid-East region in this year's men's March tournament.
You know, it's kind of interesting because Joel and I are on this path where we're about to have the third straight winless battle.
We'll see.
I think I got this one.
All right.
This would be 1980.
You got it.
Oh,
Would you have gotten that, Joel?
no.
Hey, at least you're honest.
I was close at 81.
You were. I was nervous.
My three guesses, 83, 81, 80. I was zeroed in pretty close to it. Joel, you had no chance today. None.
And for all you kids out there, make sure to use a paper and pen. Do not try this without paper and pen.
Remember, Joel, I got to bring up this point, too. I had a bye week last week, so I was very well rested and prepared for today.
He was ready.
Yeah.
I've been listening, so I'll bow down, Brett. I'm a big fan of yours. So.
Hey,
Joel,
stay on the line.
Yeah, stay on the line. We're going to get, you know how the routine works. We got to get some info, get you your large pizza to Pizza Hut. Thanks so much for playing. Appreciate you being a listener. And we've got to see what we've got going on here at Facebook.com and see how many people we got on our stream to decide if we're going to keep this going or not. Up next, we're going to be having a conversation with Mark Spade. It's all about the Sertoma Awards. What are they? Who gets honored? And, we can go back and talk 70 years of history here in Fort Wayne. That is what comes up next. Plus, we're going to talk to Michigan's play-by-play voice, Brian Boesch. He'll join us coming up at 5:35. It's a Tuesday edition of the Sports Rush on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. It is game day tonight at the Gate Center. The Macedon women will be taking on Old Dominion in the WNIT. It is postseason basketball. Mastodons looking to make it to the third round. And to do that, they've got to take care of the Monarchs at the Gate Center. Tickets are available. They are just $10. It's free to park, the cheap concessions. So it's not an expensive night to come on out and support women's basketball on campus at Purdue Fort Wayne at the Hilliard Gates Sports Center. Be there tonight, 7 o'clock, the tip, and I hope to see you there. Good luck to the Purdue Fort Wayne women tonight. You know that just a couple of weeks away, we're going to be having another edition of the Sertoma Awards. And I imagine there are a lot of people that listen to this program that are big sports fans in this community, and they may or may not be aware of what the Sertoma Awards really represent and just how prestigious it has become. And this year, it's the 70th year for a Fort Wayne tradition with our local high school athletes, and we wanted to talk about it. And joining us is Mark Spade, who is the organizer in charge of this year's edition of the Sertoma Awards. He's been involved with it for many, many years. And Mark, welcome to the Sports Rush.
Thank you so much for having me this evening.
And this is 70 years now for the Sertoma Awards. And to kind of set the table here, let's go back. And first of all, what is a Sertoma Award? And for many people, they probably are not even familiar with the Sertoma Club. How did this all get off the ground, and what does it represent?
Thank you, Brett. The Sertoma Club is acronym for Service of Mankind. It is an organization like Kiwanis Alliance. It's a service organization. And the downtown Sertoma Club was founded in December of 1955. And most of the members of the initial membership were involved in the construction industry. General contractors and subs around Fort Wayne joined together to start the Sertoma Club. And in 1956, in May of 1956, they started the Sertoma Award. And the Sertoma Award initially was given to the 5 outstanding boys senior athletes of the 5 high schools at that time in Fort Wayne. Northside, Southside, Concordia Lutheran, Central Catholic, and Central High Schools, which are no longer in existence. and it was given based on athletic, being an outstanding athlete, and also based on 9 other points of reference: academics, character, morals, personality, cooperation, sportsmanship, citizenship, leadership, and extracurricular activities within your high school.
This is one of those awards that is so prestigious because it represents so much more than just being a great athlete. And, you know, when you look at what you just gave as far as some of the criteria for being selected to be the Sertoma Award recipient for your school. Now, it has evolved, and we've gotten into the 21st century, so girls also are eligible for this award. We should point that out. It started as a boys' award, but it is now available for a male or female recipient at each school. But also it has expanded greatly as far as the number of schools that have athletes recognized. What is it currently today?
Yes, it started out with the 5 high schools in the 50s. It expanded in the 60s and the 70s and the early 80s into what we considered as the SAC, the Summer Athletic Conference. Central and Central Catholic went by the wayside. You added the 2 bishops, Dwenger and Lures. Snyder came in. Northrop and Wayne came in. Harding. And Elmhurst, so there was the SAC schools. And it was that way and until 2007. Back in the 70s, 80s, you had girls being selected as the recipient for the Sertoma Award with their local high school. And in 2007, Mike Shields, who ran the program for 20-plus years, was a 67 recipient at Dwenger. He turned over the baton to myself, and then we decided we should include every high school in Allen County. So today you have 16 schools, and every year it basically is 50% male and 50% female are the recipients collectively for the Sertoma Awards now.
Of course, Mark Spade joining us from the Sertoma Awards, and he's been running this program since 2007. Is that right, Mark?
That sounds about right, yes.
So really, you kind of took over when it got expanded into all of the Allen County schools, and it's been that way now for almost 20 years. And you've had a lot of real who's among Fort Wayne sports broadcasters and just Fort Wayne media people in general that have been master of ceremonies of this event. But I go all the way back to the beginning. One of the great supporters that helped get it off the ground and hosted the event originally was the great Hilliard Gates.
Yes, and Hilliard was involved with it for many years, was an excellent supporter of the vision and the efforts of this award, what it means. Dick Floria took over from early years from Hilliard. He was probably involved as a presenter for probably 3 decades. And then since that time frame, and probably around, I forget the exact year, 2010, 11, somewhere in there, he stepped aside, and Kent Horman came in as the presenter, and Dean Pentasi has been the MC for it since that time frame. Great group of men now, and collectively the media in this town has supported this event without question.
And of course,
it's a great blessing for their support.
Yeah, it is. It's a wonderful thing to recognize the athletes who are also just great humans and great young people that not only give back in the community, but they're recognized by their peers and by their teachers and administration at their schools for just the type of leader and type of character that they have. And it's what that's done is it's resulted in a pretty impressive list of past recipients. I was looking at this, Mark, and you cannot help but be impressed looking at a list that includes Dr. Alan McGee, who won this in 1975, Dr. Mark Daniel, who's now the Fort Wayne Community School Superintendent. You had Tiffany Gooden, Walter Jordan, Caleb First, Drew Tranquil. It's a pretty impressive list of former recipients that have been bestowed with this honor.
Yes, you look at the list for the last 70 years, it's quite impressive. And Sertoma Award winners may not have some of the accolades accolades and some of the fan recognition, some of the names you just gave us, but all Sertoma winners, they go into college and they become great citizens of the community, and and business and education and science and medicine and law enforcement and lawyers, all across the gamut of professional activities, and they give back to the communities that if they're in Fort Wayne or wherever they live now within the country.
So give us a quick list of how these athletes are selected, because I think the people that know them best are the ones that really are the ones that select them. It's not, it's not a panel that's not familiar with the type of kid that you're dealing with or the family they come from. And I think in some ways, I'll be honest, Mark, I think a lot of times this is a family award because it's kids that have been raised right, that do the right things, and they understand the good from the bad. And so a lot of times I think the families are certainly behind this. But what is the process for selecting the student athlete that gets this at each school?
Well, you mentioned the parents, but it's a community. I mean, you have principals and athletic directors and guidance counselors and coaches. They've all been involved with the lives of these students to make them what they are. But just as something of a note here, I went to the library this afternoon and found the original article in May of 1956 in the Journal Gazette that talked about the initial Sertoma Awards and how they did the process here.
Wow.
And what they did back then, the 5 schools, the senior class at each school elected or nominated 3 possible recipients for to be the one recipient from their school. When that was done, it was turned over to the a group of teachers within the school personnel, and they just selected their Sertoma Award winner. The process today is a little different, but it involves the athletic directors, the coaches, the principal, the guidance counselor, teachers, and they come up with who they think the possibilities would be, and they make the selection every year. And so it hasn't really changed much from 70 years ago, where it used to be a little heavier on athletics. Now it's 50-50 between athletics and academics. I just looked at the recipients this year, Brett, and there's 3 valedictorians and 2 salutatorians this year.
And
just outstanding from the academic side of it. And then also from the athletic side of it, it'd be amazed of the, all conference people and qualifiers at sectionals and regionals and team sports and state finals and various sports. It's just amazing what the accomplishments are of these young individuals.
Yeah, I think when you develop the kind of character and leadership skills that a lot of these kids are being recognized for, it translates into success in their sports as well. When is this year's edition of the awards? When will this actually happen?
This year, as in past years, we host the event at the Fort Wayne Sports Club on Ardmore Avenue. The event takes place 7:30 on April 7th. This is a Monday evening. There's one other thing I'd like to just make a reference to. This I think that kind of sorted out with probably initially with Hilliard. I'm just doing some conjecture here, but it has been commonly known within the Sertoma Awards is that this was the Heisman Trophy of Fort Wayne. And if you look at the photo from this 1956 paper, the Journal, in May, it shows the picture of the 4 committee members, and they're holding the trophy that each recipient received in 1956 and early on. And it looks like a massive Oscar trophy, very massive design, and that's what they were given as the recipient from each of their high schools in 1956 for the first year.
Mark, enjoy going down memory lane with you. It's a great award. I'd say a great organization, but unfortunately, Sertoma Club not around anymore. But you've done a great job in keeping this tradition still going, and obviously the Fort Wayne sports community and the high school sports community really appreciates it because it's deserving recognition for very deserving student athletes in our community. We appreciate the work that you do. And good luck with the event coming up on April 7th.
Well, I appreciate all that, but this is done collectively with all the athletic directors, past, current, Currently, Ken Harmon is doing fantastic. Couldn't do without those two fine young gentlemen, and that young gentlemen. And, even with your support today, it means a lot. And at the end of the day, we're here to honor the accomplishments and the hard work of outstanding young student athletes in Allen County.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
That is Mark Spade joining us from the Sertoma Awards, which will be coming up for our Fort Wayne area high school athletes here in Allen County on April 7th. We got to take a time out. We come back on the other side. Brian Boesch, voice of the Michigan Wolverines, will join us right here on the Sports Rush, 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. Got to give full disclosure that last week we tried to get Brian Boesch to join us on the program, but because of the schedule with the travel going out to Denver and the difference in time zone, it was just not able to be worked out. And I thought, no sweat. They're going to get through the weekend. We'll have a chance to talk to him next week. And I got to be honest, a little bit honest here. I figured if we're going to have him on, we better get him on real quick because the road gets a little bit tougher this week for those Wolverines. I'm not making a prediction, but you don't want to know what my bracket says. Brian Boesch, voice of the Michigan Wolverines, joining us here on the Sports Rush. And, boy, it had to be a fun weekend last weekend. Anytime you can get through the first weekend of the tournament and head to the Sweet 16, got to be a lot of fun as a broadcaster as well as a member of the team.
Yeah, Brett, appreciate you having me on. I would have liked for you to have said let's punt it to next week so that you were confident we'd make the Final Four. But, no, it's been a lot of fun, and, it really is a bit unexpected if you were following along down the stretch of the season. They finished with 4 losses in their last 6 regular season games, and no one was picking them to make a run in the Big Ten tournament. They rattle off 3 wins in less than 48 hours, and here they are in the Sweet 16, which goes to show you that it's pretty tough to predict sports, and that's why their perfect brackets are few and far between these days.
What is it about Michigan State with Michigan? What does Michigan State do well that makes them a difficult matchup for Michigan?
I think Michigan State has, the transition game for them is one of the best in the country. They rebound the basketball. They've been deeper and more experienced this season. I know a lot of Michigan fans would love to get an opportunity to face them again in the Elite Eight. A, because that means they would have beaten Auburn, but B, you never want to get swept by your rivals. But Michigan State's one of the very, very best teams in the country. So is Auburn, and Ole Miss is pretty darn good too. So whoever gets out of this regional will have very much deserved it. There's no doubt.
You had a chance to play Maryland a couple of times over a week and a half span, and Maryland, another team that has made it out of the Big Ten into the Sweet 16. Did you see or expect this based on what you saw of Maryland over the last couple of weeks?
I really liked Maryland's chances just because of the fact that they would benefit from the expanded media timeout breaks in the NCAA tournament. This isn't the deepest team, but their starting lineup is up there with anybody's in the country. And, boy, Derek Queen has had a couple of good games against Michigan. He was outstanding. Obviously, the game winner against Colorado State the other day. Julian Reese has played better here in the NCAA tournament. I think they're really, really good. And when you have that type of interior presence with a handful of guys who can shoot pretty well from 3, that's as good as it gets in tournament time.
We're talking to Brian Boesch, play-by-play voice of the Michigan Wolverines. Brian, you've had a lot of highlight calls this year because you've had a lot of dramatic finishes with the Wolverines. Do you have any one that really stands out?
Yeah, I think anytime you win a game where you are trailing with a basketball in the air when the buzzer sounds and you win that game, there's a special memory to it. So the Amari Burnett 3 against Rutgers was special just because you literally snatch defeat away and you win the game. You find a way to get it done. But then winning the Big Ten Tournament Championship, it was just so improbable, not just for that week, but over the last year. Michigan last season was one of the worst teams in the country, and they were probably the worst power conference team in the country. And here they are now as a group that's in the Sweet 16 with a chance to, really make some noise in Atlanta. So when you get that done and do it, from the very last game on Friday, they literally went 9 o'clock tip, 3:30 tip, 3:30 tip. That is incredibly difficult to do. So that always is going to have a special place, just all the big moments in that game for sure.
So what is it that makes this Michigan team special?
I think it's its resilience and its ability to really overcome, whether it's adversity in the game or over the course of time. The fact that this group has come together and believed in the message that Dusty May preached around this time last year for the first time. I mean, he was, this was about 1 year ago today. It was a couple days ago now that Dusty May was hired, and he had to create basically everything from phase one. And he's done it. He's done it at a high level. I think he's done it the right way. And when you build that, you give yourself a chance, but you don't know how these young men are going to respond to adverse times, to challenging games, to difficult matchups. And they've been able to do that and do it at a really high level. And it's been one of the most gratifying, fun seasons I've experienced. It's been one of the best teams I've been around, and it starts at the top. Dusty May's done an incredible job with it.
Speaking of Dusty May, was there ever a time where you questioned whether Dusty May would be back next season as the Michigan coach?
No, I really didn't. And it's easy to say that now, but I never perceived Dusty to be a one and done at any spot. I think anybody who thinks that any one person is going to be in a job for the entirety of their careers is being probably a bit presumptuous. I don't know if this is the final stop for Dusty May in his head coaching career. A lot of things can happen, but Dusty May is somebody who wants to build a program. The story is well documented of when he took the job at FAU. He saw the facilities and broke down in tears and wanted to quit. And his wife, Anna, who's a wonderful person, who is very important to Dusty and who he is as a person and as a coach, encouraged him to keep it going, to keep the job, to push and see what they can do. And, 5 seasons later, there they were in the Final Four. If you're that committed to turn FAU from what it was to what it became, I just never believed that he was going to look elsewhere, even if in a vacuum. Obviously, there's some real intrigue to what Indiana is I don't care what anybody says. Indiana is a blue blood program in college basketball. Yeah, I know it hasn't been that way from a result standpoint in a little while, but to me, a blue blood program is one that if you know everything's going to click, that team's contending for national championships, and that's where Indiana is. You're going to get a great job. You're going to have a great opportunity. But this is something where you have to find a way to. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second. But you with Dusty, I never thought that he was going to stray away after 1 year, and that is something where even the allure of Indiana, very impressive. A great program, a great school. I felt like he was stuck there.
Yeah, and a former student manager who has roots in Indiana. So there were a lot of thoughts that he was the logical choice from the beginning, but very quickly Michigan reacted, and Dusty made it known that that's where he wanted to stay. So let's talk about Auburn. What type of game are we going to see? Is it, because I really don't know how these teams match up and whether Michigan wants to play a 62-61 game or if Michigan is willing to go up and down the court with Auburn. What do you expect out of these two?
Yeah, Michigan wants to get out in transition, and one of the very few areas where I think there's a potential opening for Michigan just because of how good Auburn is. There's openings in every game, but Auburn doesn't have a lot of weaknesses. They're not great in transition defense. Not a lot of teams that Michigan has seen in the SEC have been great in that category, and Michigan got out and ran against Texas A&M, and I think that's possible against Auburn. I don't know who of anybody can really slow down Auburn in a lot of these games. Really, outside of the SEC tournament, where for whatever reason there were just kind of a couple of slogs and dogfights that they played. Outside of that, if you look at Auburn's games, they've put up a bunch of points. They're dynamic offensively. Dusty May put it really interestingly. He just said, it's good that there aren't 5 basketballs on the floor because all 5 guys for them could score and score a lot. You can only have so many guys scoring a bunch of points for them because there's only one basketball. So I do believe that Michigan will want to get out, will want to get in transition, and I expect this game to be pretty high scoring. How much? Who knows? It's the Sweet 16, so there's going to be some nerves, some jitters. They will have waited all day. I know the listed tip time is 9:39. I don't think that game is tipping at 9:39 based on how this normally goes. So, you're looking at probably close to a 10 o'clock tip at best. It's a long wait for a big environment, for a big stage. So there could be some early jitters, but I expect this game. I'd be pretty surprised if the winning team didn't have at least 75 and probably upwards of 80 points.
I wanted to live a little bit through you right now, Brian, because you're getting to do what I think everybody who broadcasts college basketball would love to have the opportunity to do, and that is to call an NCAA tournament. Give me an idea of what it is like. What are the perks? What are some of the things that you kind of soak in when you're getting an opportunity to broadcast the NCAA tournament?
Well, I'll tell you this, Brett. I think the 2 things that really stand out to me covering an NCAA tournament, one is that you get a lot of access and opportunities to hear from players, to understand the storylines. I think just like the players and the coaches, I think everybody around the NCAA tournament brings it to another level. Those who cover the teams, those who support the media side of things. It's always incredibly well run. Listen, the NCAA, they have plenty of things, in my opinion, that can be critiqued and criticized, but they run a really, really good event structurally, day to day, on the media side, the practice side, all of it. It's super fun. For me, it's interesting. Once the ball tips off, it's just like calling a basketball game. There's an added emphasis. There are more ears on your call. There are more eyeballs on the game, but it's still calling the action. And the first time I called the tournament game, I was super nervous leading up to it. You put in all this prep, you do all this work, and then you just kind of you rest on your fundamentals. You rest on what got you there. And it's you hear that from athletes too. And I think in certain big moments it might be a little elevated and a little bit of nerves, but largely once you get going, it's a basketball game for them. It's a basketball broadcast for me. And to me, the extra juice, the extra oomph comes in the prep before it, and then the elation after a win or the devastation after a loss, because it really, you go into every game thinking that the team you're going to call is, or at least hoping that the team you're calling the game for is going to win. But only one team will survive. This is going to end for everybody else at some stage. And you just try to soak it in as much as you can. So, for me, I just want to do it justice. And that's why I put a lot of prep work and a lot of effort into ensuring I'm as ready to go by about 9:45, 10 o'clock on Friday night.
You have an idea why this regional, like in Indianapolis, they're playing at Lucas Oil Stadium, why this regional wasn't played at the stadium?
I think the only reason why it's being at Lucas Oil is a trial run for the Final Four coming, I think, because isn't it in Indy next year?
Yeah, I think so.
So I think that's why. They used to always have the regionals, the Sweet 16 Elite 8 in football stadiums. I mean, I've never been to one personally where where a basketball game has been in a football. I hope to be in San Antonio next week where a football stadium is hosting a basketball game, but I've never actually physically been to one. I can't imagine that there are many great seats. I'd rather have 20,000 with pretty good views for a basketball arena as long as possible. There is some pomp and circumstance to the Final Four that, we want to have 70,000 plus in there. But I think for the Sweet 16 Elite 8, it makes more sense to have it in a basketball venue.
It is Friday night, and it will tip sometime probably not before 9:39, probably closer to 9:50 to 9:55, but it's the Michigan Wolverines and the Auburn Tigers, and Brian Boesch will be there to call it on the Michigan Radio Network. And by the way, we did have a listener here who said they listen to you. They love your call. They listen to a station in Sturgis, Michigan, to catch Michigan Wolverines games. So you've got a local fan here in Fort Wayne.
Oh man, that is an honor that someone would reach out and say that. We love our fans listening to WBET, if I recall.
You know what he put? It's Fox Sports Radio 1230. So I don't know.
1230. Yep. Yeah, that's it. We got it. Absolutely. No, that's awesome. That is really, really cool. And hey, it's, as you know, Brett, it's so much easier. We don't get any worse when the team doesn't do well, or when they do well, we're not any better. But definitely the good times, people tend to listen more. So super thankful that we've been able to bounce back from last year and have a pretty fun year this year.
Yep, it has been a fun year, and congratulations. So many of your calls have ended up viral, and I've had a chance to hear them just in little clips that I've seen on social media. You do a great job there with the Wolverines. Appreciate so much you taking time to contact us. And I'll make you this deal, Brian. If you can squeeze us in next week, we'll put you on the radio. So get through the weekend, and that, I don't know if that's motivation or not, but we'll put you on next week if you've got the time.
I'll pass this along to Danny, Vlad, Trey, and the rest of the team.
Yeah, because that's always going to get it done. Yeah, that's whiteboard material right there if I've ever heard it. All right, thanks, Brian. Appreciate it.
Brett, be well.
That is Brian Boesch, the play-by-play voice of the Michigan Wolverines. We'll take a break. We'll come back. This is the Sports Rush on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. Still time for you to get out to the Gate Center for women's basketball. Purdue Fort Wayne will take on Old Dominion, the Monarchs, in the WNIT second round. Tip at 7 o'clock right here in Fort Wayne tonight. Tickets are available $10. No fee to park. Cheap concessions, great deal. Hope to see you out at the Gate Center tonight. Thanks to our guests that appeared on the show, Mark Spade from the Sertoma Awards and Brian Boesch, voice of the Michigan Wolverines. We'll be back for a Hump Day edition coming up tomorrow from 4 to 6. Enjoy your Tuesday night. This has been the Sports Rush on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM.